if it wasn't for Blair,
we would have done a whole show to no one.
I feel like we need to have
why we work together as
we
a
need
team.
to have a Blair represented like in a Star Trek episode or something where it's like it's all red alert and they're like ready photons or torpedoes, whatever, and then Blair just be like, the shields aren't on. We don't have the shields up. Anybody? We don't. Oh, okay. Let's not get into this spaceship fight just yet. Let's put the shields on.
You know that we don't have any photon blasters, lasers, missiles.
It's more like the space parking brake is on.
Yeah.
So everybody,
something's not working with the ship.
I want you to know that we are a great team, and I'm so glad that we do this together. This is This Week in Science. Thank you for joining us for another Wednesday night episode. And if this is the time for you to be here now, you should tell your friends to be here now as well, because this is that time. We're starting the show. So bring the fun. Get everyone excited. We're going to talk about science. We're going to be happy. We're going to be up. We're going to be down. We're going to be serious. We're going to be funny. We're going to all the things, because it's human. And just like science, that is, we're a human endeavor.
And like Kiki always
not
says,
an AI endeavor, because
don't be a mofo.
Not a mofo, a Jomo or a FOMO.
I tried to participate with the new words.
Yeah.
And don't go slow-mo. Right.
Oh, there you go.
Very good, Blair.
Okay.
If we were all in it together, we could have coordinated, but unfortunately, you're the only one who was time blocked there. And everyone, tell everyone to join us wherever you are, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. This is the part of the show where I go, hey, this is edited out. And Rachel does something with this. And then we have the lovely podcast where we are very serious for the whole entire show, and she gets rid of anything that does not make sense. And that goes into the podcast.
I appear very little in the actual published podcast for some reason. I keep meaning to talk to her about that, but I don't think I want to also know why. So maybe I've been avoiding it.
Y'all can tell people to subscribe to the podcast and get the podcast as well, but we are here on these platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and you can watch video live or later. It's time for the show. Do I need to say anything else? No, because we are actually live this time. Okay. Time for the show. Let's go in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 1027, recorded on Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. You can't retract good science. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight we will fill your head with ape doctors, flying bird poo, and the mind's eye. But first,
disclaimer. Although the sun is shining high above, there are shadows creeping in spite of all that we have learned from science, literature, history, and art. Like there is a madness growing in ignorance in the American heart. How freedoms are lost is how power is seized. And it's a long road back from enslavement to freed. So this book, that research, those ideas, every band comes with a hidden cost, because knowledge is a form of freedom and a freed mind is never lost. There are brilliant people in this world more than ever before. And one not too distant day, they will again be knocking on American doors. After the failure of the ignorant and the cruel, when the smart kids have had enough, the sun will still be shining high above. Meanwhile, down on Earth, it's This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one
Good science to Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back again to talk about all the science that we decided to bring to this show to talk about tonight. You know what? I absolutely love the optimism and the curiosity and the big wonder. Oh my God, there's so much out there that science brings. And sometimes it is ridiculous and sometimes it is just downright important. But I love getting to talk about it. And thank you for being a part of this community and being here to listen to us talk about science. And I hope that you take something with you tonight. I brought stories about disappearing nature words, phantom limbs, brains and thumbs, chimp doctors, and pig lungs for people. What'd you bring, Justin?
I forgot. I saw that phantom limb story. I'm excited to hear about this because that's a big one. That's a really big one.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. Oh, what did I bring? I have psychedelic therapy don'ts. Why getting COVID-19 vaccine is going to be possibly more complicated this year. And then I might talk about the first plague ever recorded in our histories.
Ever?
It's like kind of famous.
The black one, or
no, yeah, it's just the plague is what they call it.
The plague.
Yeah, but it was the most has another name I'm going to avoid using if I can. And a new segment, it's not completely new. New segment. Justin trashes a study.
We've had fun, critiquing things in the past, but I like this new title. That's great. We could all have fun.
Is that you printed it out just so you could crumple it up and throw it into the trash? Is that?
No, it's worse.
Nice audio.
It's actually much worse. It was. I spent 3.5 hours trying to figure out why my brain didn't work, and trying to decipher how I kept how am I making so many mistakes and how am I reading this wrong? As I go back to check, the writing that I've done on this piece, I keep finding contradictory things, and it turns out the contradictions are all throughout the paper and wasn't the failings of my feeble mind. So it made me angry, and now I'm going to trash the study.
I love that because I've had the same feeling about studies where I'm like, wait, am I dumb? Is this what's wrong with me? And then I go, no.
Yeah,
I feel like that's very relatable. That's like beyond scientific studies. We all get those emails from the boss where you're like, am I dumb or does this make no sense? You're like,
and the thing that actually then I'll get into it, but the thing that made me maddest of all is that it's a Science Advances. It's a Nature publication. It's a
science.
It's supposed to have authors that review their work before they submit it. It's supposed to get accepted for publication by somebody who reads it. It's supposed to get peer reviewed. And
Science Advances is
editorial board
is fast tracked. Science Advances is like the less. It's not science. It's
one of those that you should be proud of if you've been published.
Totally. I think so. But Blair.
Yes.
What's in the animal corner?
Oh, yeah, I brought things. I have a story about jumping spiders, can never turn them down. I have the aforementioned bird poop. Gotta bring a poop story. And then I have cane toads, which we've talked about just so many times on this show. And I'm very excited.
Are they still there?
New cane toads nudes. Yes!
They still haven't gotten rid of the cane toads in Australia. How long have they had to fix that one problem?
Since they were introduced.
Yeah, almost 100 years ago. We're going to talk about it.
Still can't fix it? Oh my gosh.
All right, everyone. We have so many great stories for you tonight. And if you haven't by now, please subscribe to This Week in Science on whatever streaming platform, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. that you find us on. We are live every Wednesday evening-ish, about 8 p.m. Pacific time-ish. And we also have a podcast. This episode is being edited by our wonderful editor, Rachel, who will put it into our podcast RSS feed for those of you who like to listen to things that are edited. So subscribe and share with your friends. And if you want to know more, head to twist.org and share with your friends. Now it's time for the science. Share with your friends. Okay. Have you heard of the Atlas or 3I comet since July-ish?
I know. I haven't.
No.
It's not on my
I have
radar.
not been hearing. I'm like in a space news deprived zone. Like,
Oh, okay.
Like longly, not even lately.
Lately, longly, shortly. Well, I'm here to tell you about a comet that's not really a comet because we've been looking at it. Hubble looked at it. We set JWST on it. But oh, what a newer observatory telescope for infrared stuff, SPHEREx, who isn't supposed to be looking at our own solar system, but galaxies that are far, far away, that kind of scooped JWST on the looking at this comet. And it's really been realized it's not really a comet. It's an interstellar interloper.
Interloper.
Interloper. So in early July, we had this incredible thing in the sky that everybody's been like, what is it? Where's it coming from? What's going on? And so, do you remember when Oumuamua came through and everybody
That was the
said,
cigar-shaped one, right? That looked like a spaceship, kind of?
yeah, and it was
Is
like,
that what spaceships look like?
no,
I'm sure there are some that look
Somewhere.
like cigars.
You're probably right.
possibly. It was, because, space has so much friction. Anyway.
Yeah,
Hubble-
but there's a weird thing, which is when you have a point at the end, it creates higher heat. You can actually blunt that heat. That's why have you ever noticed the space capsule when it comes down?
No,
it
that's
comes
through
down
the
on the blunt end.
flat side. I know, because then the around it and then parachute.
Yeah, dissipates
It's all
heat
about
more around
friction
it, kind of
and
than concentrating at one point. Anyway,
so this is very actually apropos to the conversation about the Atlas, not comet. Researchers have taken a good look at the trajectory of this object and have determined that by looking at it, what they're able to say is that they couldn't really didn't have the normal comet tail, and they couldn't see a nucleus or a good coma. So they were like, what is this fluffy ball of stuff flying through the solar system? And so they're looking at it closer and closer. They were able to determine that it does not have a trajectory through the solar system, which is like any other object in the solar system. At first, they thought it might be a Keplerian object, that it might be coming from the Kepler disk. But what they have been able to determine is that, oh, no, it's coming in at a really weird off angle, and the speed and everything it's doing is just not normal for something that would be coming from the Kepler belt or from within the solar system. And so they have determined that it is from elsewhere. And they think it is from a very active area within the Milky Way of star birth, generation, a lot of stuff going on. It's not a spaceship. There probably are no aliens. But it's very interesting because this is the third such object that we have identified within our solar system. And looking at the spectroscopy of the elements that seem to be outgassing from it, normally you'd think as it's getting comets they have the tail of water ice. That water ice is sublimating, or heating up, and it is evaporating, coming off as it heats up and gets closer to the sun, as it makes the orbit around the sun, that it heats up and the tail of water ice comes off. And so usually they're very low in carbon dioxide-ish, carbon monoxide, whatever. But water for comets from the Kepler belt are usually very high. Oumuamua was high in water, which was very interesting. But it did seem to be getting rid of a lot of that water as it went toward the sun and headed off on its interstellar journey. Then there was a second object that came through, and the second object is actually more similar to what we're seeing now with the Atlas. And the second object was low in carbon monoxide and kind of high in carbon dioxide coming off of it. And so there's a difference in the kind of the temperature of activation of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide versus water. Water usually goes away first if it's an old thing. As it goes around, like the heat gets rid of the water. Carbon monoxide is usually the secondary thing that goes away, and carbon dioxide tends to stick around a little bit. And so it's like the three bears story, actually, with these three objects that have come through our solar system so far. And we've also looked at them with the Hubble, JWST, and now the SPHEREx, which are getting really good views of what's happening with these objects. So Oumuamua was about 100 meters across, eccentricity of 1.119, entrance speed of 26 kilometers per second. Borisov was the second, just under 1 kilometer in size, eccentricity of 3.36, entrance speed of 32 kilometers per second. 3i Atlas, 10 to 30 kilometers. Lots of uncertainties because, like I said, we haven't been able to get a really good view of it because it's not super defined. It has an eccentricity of 6.2 and an entrance speed of 58 kilometers per second with respect to the solar system. They think it came from the thick disk of the Milky Way. There is a really wonderful article on the Big Think by one of our favorite guests on the show and podcaster. What's Ethan Siegel? That's what his name is. Starts with a bang. Anyway, this latest Atlas has come through. It is, according to SPHEREx and JWST. JWST got a much better look at it, but the data suggests that it is releasing a lot of carbon dioxide. And so carbon dioxide requires temperatures of about 100 Kelvin to sublimate. And this is about the distance from from the sun to Saturn, where about 100 Kelvin are. And so water ice needs hundreds of Kelvin, and carbon monoxide and nitrogen go off earlier. Anyway, Comet Hartley, the second one, came through. It didn't have carbon monoxide. It spent a lot of time close to the sun, and it has emitted pretty much all of its carbon monoxide and water, and pretty much all that's left is carbon dioxide. And this suggests that also Atlas, it's like Hartley 2, it's fragmenting a bit. It's probably going to get rid of a bit of water, but basically it's like it's old, but it's not as old as things that have just been sitting in the Kepler belt.
Oh, it's not. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they say that, or Ethan says, is it's going to leave our solar system. It's probably not going to change its composition significantly, and it's not aliens, and it's comet-like.
Well, it is. It's an alien because it's not native to our.
It's not a spaceship. It's not a spaceship.
It's an interstellar interloper.
It is.
So I am curious about the "it's not as old" thing. I kind of assumed that anything that made a journey from another stellar system had to be older, probably, than stuff that was floating around in our solar system. I would have assumed that. And I thought that's why it would have had those other gases going, versus the ones that are going to come in from Kepler are still going to have water, but they may also maybe just never got heated up before. I don't know.
But it's been in space. It's been in, outside this, it's been in interstellar space. It hasn't been near a lot of stars necessarily.
No, but it still seems like to make the journey, my gosh.
And of course, over time, there's going to be sublimation and gases are going to, probabilistically take their exit. But at the same time, these interstellar visitors, how many stars have they been past? Where have they lost all their gases? And so what we're seeing is what Ethan says here. We've got Oumuamua looked very old, like it was in the final stages before evaporating completely. Borisov looked young, like a fresh Kuiper belt-like object just approaching a star's system's interiors for the first time. And Atlas kind of looks like it's in between. So it's not super, super old. It's older than Kuiper belt stuff, but it's not Kuiper belt young. It doesn't have, it's been traveling for a very long time, maybe even billions of years.
And that's the thing.
The light water ices have taken off, and now you've just got a lot of CO2.
And now that you're talking about, like, a multi-billion-year-old journey could totally be made. That's not that hard. Especially at the speeds these things can be moving. My goodness.
Right. And so, the speeds that I mentioned of their entry, it's relative to the orbital speed, the rotational speed of the solar system. So Atlas is really fast compared to other ones, and it's different, but we might see more of a tail as it gets nearer to the sun. But it's we won't probably get to see it because of where it'll be, because it'll be like exactly on the opposite side of the sun from us, and so we'll lose a view of it. But anyway, can't win everything. Yeah, who knows how many stars it's been by and lost mass. Yeah, we don't know. A lot of these images as well, it's infrared, so it's colder on the outside, hotter hotter on the inside. Yeah. Colder on the inside, hotter on the outside. Anyway. Fun stuff. Oh, hey, and SpaceX had a kind of successful Starship launch yesterday, suborbital. They didn't actually get out of orbit. Starship launched. It did not explode anywhere. It landed on the Indian Ocean and fell over and then blew up.
Oh, no.
It was supposed to.
Okay, it was supposed to. Okay.
It was supposed to land near a buoy to show that it had a homing ability to land within a target range.
And then it was supposed to blow up?
Well, it hit the water and there wasn't anything for it. There wasn't a landing pad and it just kind of went.
That still sounds bad.
There's somebody who's like, hey, this is why they need Blair on every team. Did we put down the big floaty cushions at the landing site? Yeah, I'm sure they're Nobody noticed because there was no Blair.
Yeah, we have to remember though, this Starship Super Heavy, it's the biggest rocket ever launched. It's had a lot of issues. So far though, it's matching Falcon Heavy's launch number, but it blew up a lot of times. And I'm not really sure because people aren't really talking about it as to whether or not how big a payload it was carrying. It did have some dummy Starlink satellites that it was releasing to show that it could be a great launch vehicle for Starlink if it's never able to leave Earth's gravity well and take us to Mars. I'm not I think I've stopped being a happy cheerleader for a lot of these things now. I want it to work, but oh my god.
There's another problem here, which is I just kind of Googled SpaceX launch to see what came up. and it's all successful flight, nails test flight, successful launch, nails critical 10th test, successful test of launch. Like, it's just like, sure, fine. But like,
it was
also
suborbital. They didn't do, like, this is a rocket that's supposed to take people to Mars or the moon.
And the richest person on the planet is behind this. And so, like, the news coverage, is it colored by that? I don't know. But that's just, that's interesting that's the narrative.
Well, so just in general, like the science news space beat has always been positive, right? Whether it was the government or it's now this. I doubt that has anything to do with it. But I do kind of wish we were talking about, instead of the richest person on the planet trying to launch rockets, we were talking about the smartest person.
Right.
We have the smartest person who's in charge of launching rockets. That would seem like that would be the better preamble to who is in charge than the richest. But, that's not the planet we live on. Correct.
Yeah,
Listen,
and we do know that
the narrative. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we do know that they were having issues with the angle of the rocket as it went through the atmosphere. So we know that they did like a long, less angled trajectory, so that it wouldn't have as much friction that would make it explode. And they've also been doing things like reducing the amount of payload. So where once they said, we will be able to take this massive amount of payload to space, and you know what? Now they're like, oh, we're going to basically just be able to take the rocket. But
then we can send smaller rockets to the big rocket. And then what? And then we can release that payload from the small rocket.
Just launch the rocket and then send everybody one at a time up in the space elevator. You'll be all set. There you go.
Yeah. And if anybody has news to let us know the details, and if we're wrong and they've actually exceeded these expectations and understandings, let us know.
I'm getting really, really frustrated with this because I want this to work. I want there to be a way to get all of the people who want to move to Mars there.
Okay.
Like that French
I feel like that's
mural.
Increasingly more important.
Yeah. Yeah. I see somebody in the chat is saying, sounds like it was a successful test if they met their goal. But my question is, did they set their goal to be met? Or did they set a goal that was actually
ding, ding, ding,
helpful
ding, ding, ding.
to where we're trying to get to, right? And if it's all about shareholders and futures and stocks, then you need to perform in a way that it looks like you're being successful. And so the bar is,
and they have
at a level that you can meet. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They can't lose the Artemis contract. They have to replace the SLS, which has been canceled. They have to there's nothing that can do the Artemis mission, and there's all this, and Boeing's not doing it. So it's kind of like if SpaceX doesn't, who will? There's this really interesting space, and if SpaceX loses, then that's going to be the company. It's done. Very interesting.
And what I was going to say to Justin's thing about like space coverage also always being kind of positive, I would actually argue, I'd say that a lot of like NASA coverage over the years, especially that we've talked about here, it's hopeful, it's optimistic, but it is certainly realistic. And when NASA messes up, or when something does not go as planned, there is a detailed postmortem that we discuss on the show, usually, about exactly what went wrong and how, or this went right in this way and this way and this way, but the rover crashed into the planet after it took its measurements, or whatever it is, right? Like there's always that conversation, because these are literal moonshots, right? This is like trying to do something that's never been done before. And so I think you need that objective view to be able to like properly be optimistic and hopeful to see what is realistic.
I mean, to be fair, getting to the moon has been done before. And the fact that they're not doing that yet. Come on.
Right. Yes, they can't even leave the upper orbit yet.
So, and this is the classic.
The New Glenn rocket also did a great flight, but it's the recyclable boosters that keep being a problem. I don't know. We're doing great at launching rockets and putting satellites in orbit, but
are we? So here's the difference. Also, here's another difference. Like when you have government running a thing, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and things can get budget bloated because everybody tries to take advantage of a government contract. Right?
Do they?
Like, yeah, it's extortion. When you have to contract out, it's usually a form of extortion. The government is bad at negotiating. However, the benefits of those programs are sort of for everyone. The other side is you get rid of all the bureaucracy, you streamline it, and you have a business-oriented model. And great, maybe that's fine, but it's only ever going to benefit a few. So like we've been launching stuff can be, is it really our stuff that's going up there?
There are many, many engineers and incredible scientists who have been involved in the development of these new rockets and these new efforts. So regardless of what we may actually, be joking about or saying, criticizing the company and the way that they are approaching things, like you said, sometimes companies make promises and then they have to like make the ends meet. And that is not necessarily the problem or the fault of the employees. And there are incredible researchers, engineers, scientists who are involved in these efforts. And I have the pleasure to know some of them. And, getting to space, it is a moonshot. Getting us out there, it is a dream for so many, and it's hard. Let's do it, but not in a way that hurts all the other people. Anyway, Justin.
Oh, okay.
Are we?
Should I do a story
now? Yeah. Let's talk. Sorry. Tighten
about. Okay, this is Australian psychology research paper. This is a warning, really, about psychedelic therapies. There's some fear from these psychology researchers that mental imagery in people with adding mental imagery to people with aphantasia, which I can't say, which is a weird thing. Aphantasia? Aphantasia. I think that's right. It's weird as I can say it if it's elephantasia, then it's not a problem. When I just say aphantasia, it's got an issue. So this is a kind of a strange condition. Actually, Kiki might have this. Do you have this? Have you ever been diagnosed with aphantasia?
Diagnosed? No. But I do have issues visualizing objects, things in my head.
So it's also known as
very visual dreams. There's it's weird, but
then you don't have it. Then I don't think you have it.
No, if I try to think of an apple or I think of an action or do it, if I try and imagine it, it's this. It's like a concept. It's not an image.
Yeah. So let me give you the full, because there might be degrees to it. This is aphantasia is known as blind mind's eye. People with aphantasia recall personal memories with fewer details and less vividness. Visual mental imagery is absent, completely gone. They cannot visualize objects, people, places, or memories, and they also recall personal memories with that less detail. Okay. Recent reports, including one published case study and one preprint, along with some anecdotal accounts, describe individuals with aphantasia gaining a new capacity to visualize after a single dose of ayahuasca or psilocybin.
I knew it was going to be that.
And these reports, anecdotal or case study, preprint, whatever, those all come with positive self-reported outcomes during and after the experience, including even up to a year post-experience follow-up, right? What they're kind of concerned about, though, in this sort of warning, is that one of the things that can become an issue is in psychiatric and neurological conditions are intrusive thoughts and memories. And sometimes these intrusive thoughts and memories or cravings or maladaptive daydreaming come with images. Unwanted images can be sort of that, intrusive thought, maybe image-based. And their previous research has shown that it's much lower in people with aphantasia. They don't have the intrusions because they don't have like a mental trauma intrusion thing that happens, right? So their warning is sort of that, you would want to maybe warn people at least that it's possible that they could have, some problems if they have like a PTSD, but they haven't had image control issues or even images. The PTSD may be hidden. Anxiety may be hidden. A major depression may be hidden. They may be hidden things because one of the therapies to combat all of those is largely focused on image control, where you're learning to control the imagery that you see in your mind so that it's less traumatic, I guess. So it sounds like a good thing because they also expand this to ketamine and LSD and some others. But those reports that they're talking about and psilocybin, the sort of one-off controls or what have you, one case study, they're usually going to be working in the opposite direction. They're usually reducing intrusive thought patterns because of the way that they're controlling the I guess the amygdala is the warning. Is that right? The amygdala is like the ancient warning system of the brain.
But that's in like teeny tiny micro doses, right? Is when it's used for that. Is that
what? Not necessarily.
No. Yeah.
You're talking about programmers who are playing around with drugs to
No,
to
I thought that
launch rockets.
was like a lot of the studies that we've had on the show had to do with microdosing. Things like psilocybin and LSD to remove intrusive thoughts and things like that.
Yeah, but
I would take a full. There's no need to
therapeutically there are treatments that involve therapeutic doses, and that's what they're looking at. Yeah, that's what they're looking at.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I mean, I get why they're doing this warning. It's because this is a thing that they've studied, both the condition and then the fear is that these people may not want to be given. Sort of reminds me of the if you could take a pill that would make you autistic thing we were talking about. Would you do it? Like if there could be a pill that could make somebody autistic lose many of the symptoms, would that affect their personality, sort of a thing?
Right.
I think we should all try each other's perspectives.
Their sort of fear here is
temporarily, right? That's the fear, right? Is that it would,
but that it would not be temporary,
right?
Because if it's not temporary, then you're stuck with it, and you then after the fact have to decide if you want your mind's eye open, if you want all these images. Maybe you don't like having images. Maybe you do. I don't know.
If you've never daydreamed about something terrible happening to people that are around you in the middle of the day, and then that suddenly happens, how terrifying.
Speaking from experience.
Wait a second. What are you talking about?
That's never happened to you?
Are you
especially as a parent?
Are you
like you've never just kind of like sat there and been and like watched an imaginary scene take place where your child like walks over and does something extremely dangerous? Like you've never kind of just like
constantly,
okay.
Constantly.
All right.
100% constantly. And then, but wait, the way you said it made it sound like then it happened, like you had manifested it in a board meeting, like you think something terrible about somebody.
I meant if you've never had that experience with the daydream, right? And then all of a sudden you have your first daydream of that nature. That would be terrifying and terrible, and you'd want to turn it back off, right?
Yeah. But as a parent, like I've had that almost every way in which my child could die within the home.
Oh yeah, I push the stroller, and I just somehow imagine the stroller like hopping a fence and landing into a body of water, just like.
Maybe will this float? And the next thing you know, you see Blair with the pontoons on the side of the stroller. What's going on, Blair? Oh, I'm not ready for anything. Never can be too safe.
Moms, you all need the land, air, water stroller invented by Blair.
Arlenor says, Justin, I am autistic. Careful. Oh, yeah, we're not making fun of anybody. But the question was, if you didn't catch the story last time, it was they may have a drug that can that they're working on, and it's like mice or something. But one day may be ready that could reverse the symptoms, not the whole thing, but at least some of the behavioral symptoms of autism. And Blair was making the argument that would anybody want to take that if you're totally happy being who you are, and how much does that change somebody's personality? And are we talking about changing a person more than just a medical need at that point? Mm-hmm. And then the question is, well, as long as it's or the point I guess we were hoping that it could come to is that it would be temporary. So you could kind of try it on, as opposed to.
So, but regardless of trying things on or not, this study particularly is saying that psychedelics, ayahuasca, and mushrooms for people who are autistic or who have PTSD potentially can allow for visual if you're aphantastic.
Aphantasia.
Aphantasia.
If you're aphantasic, it kind of takes that away. And so suddenly you are able to visualize things that may be problematic that you couldn't visualize before. Or maybe if it's used in therapy, it could be great because you can see it as opposed to just conceptualize it for the first time.
Yeah, and most people who have had this experience have had positive feedback, but it's a small number. And so they're just sort of saying that this needs to be part of the informed consent, right? Mm-hmm. So that you need to be aware that you may be suddenly having images in your mind
never had before,
that you haven't experienced before, and you might not like it, and it might not go away.
Mm-hmm.
Before like that sounds like a big deal, because then we
can
play
might not go away game. Is really tough.
Yeah, because then when we play the opposite game, then again, it's like, here's a drug, but you may no longer be able to picture things in your head anymore.
Gosh.
Yeah, that'd be so frightening. But then I'm like, there's going to be a little bit of freedom in there, too.
No, I don't think so.
It's a little bit frightening to think that...
But if it was temporary?
The other way.
Yeah, but if it might not be reversible, that's a big deal. Now you're not talking about a side effect. You're talking about a life change.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's like taking LSD and having visuals forever.
Yikes.
Ever and ever and ever. That was a fear back in the 70s,
Oh, they made up so many things that were just making up stuff about that drug and about others.
I'd love to know something that they haven't made up about jumping spiders.
Oh, sure. Well, this is a study. Actually, I found an article written by a young whippersnapper named Justin Jackson. But so you can help me out with this. But I had to bring it because it's all about jumping spiders and their preferences in mating and how they may accidentally hybridize themselves to extinction. Uh-oh.
Yikes.
Yeah, so this is about 2 different species of jumping spiders. They are some of them kind of have a larger tendency to be a bright red than others. And basically it boils down to the fact that the females of both species of jumping spiders prefer red colored males. And so they will often hybridize because they are preferring this male that is of another species because he's flashier and prettier and of a preferred color. And so they did a whole test in the lab around this, which I really liked the kind of the design of, which included having females acclimate to a male for 5 minutes, and then they had 15 minutes of free interaction, and then they either ended in copulation or cannibalism, as spider situations often do, and they measured body mass after the trial, also
so
to
here's one
see
question
if there was
I
an
had,
insemination.
actually.
Yes.
Here's one question I had that I didn't get answered when I was looking at the study. Like, some of them ended in cannibalization, but then they weighed them. Like, we shouldn't weigh them?
They weighed them to see if there was insemination. That would be my assumption, right? Is that you want to see if there's a transfer of material from the male to the female, right? Because was the copulation successful ultimately? Yeah. Because if the copulation is successful, then that would result in a hybrid offspring. If they were just kind of flirting, then you don't have to worry about it, right?
I have no idea. Yeah.
So, both species, the females preferred the males that were more likely to be red. They both, about 3/4 of them preferred the red colored males versus about 1/4 of the non-red colored males. And then they even painted them, which I really like. When they painted the non-red males red, it increased their mating success to almost 50%. And then when they painted the red spiders brown, they were at about 11% success. So they went down from like a 75% to 11%. So it was all about the color red.
Although I thought it was also interesting when they painted the red spiders red, they dropped. They went down to like that same 50%. So the red paint wasn't as good as the natural.
Yes, that's also true. So they're looking for all natural red spiders. And so this is part of this. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it begs the question of what is the red that the spiders are seeing? Is it just red? Are there ultraviolet components? Is there, what are all the frequency components that the red is?
That is a great question. Is the red somehow linked to another fitness measure? We don't know. Is it linked via a previous ancestral situation where there was an indication of something that is no longer valid? Is it something that is associated with a chromosome that is also associated with something important, right? There's a bunch of different reasons that they could be focusing on red. But ultimately, because of this kind of like runaway association, it's possible that in the wild, this could lead to a complete species extinction via hybridization, which sounds scary. But part of the reason I wanted to bring this story was this is how nature works. So unless something that we are doing is somehow artificially putting kind of the thumb on the scale in some way, like if we are accidentally turning this one species of spiders red, which I do not think is happening, or if we are pushing these two species to cover the same habitat, which has not previously been the case, I don't believe that is happening. But if humans were doing something to push this selection to happen, then we could say, this is bad. However, this kind of stuff happens all the time and has happened all the time throughout evolutionary history. Sometimes for a reason, like we were talking about, there could be a fitness measure related, sometimes for no reason at all. Mutations are random, selection can be random. And so this could be us observing, because in this exact timestamp, we are observing this phenomenon, something that has happened thousands, if not millions of times over evolution. evolutionary past, right? That there has been a hybridization to extinction of a species naturally in the wild. And so that's
Like
why I wanted to bring it
Neanderthals.
up.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like Neanderthals, is that like
Yeah.
this is a normal phenomenon in natural selection. So, the kind of the framing of it does make it sound scary, like, oh no, this jumping spider might go extinct. But animals did go extinct before humans. Not at the same rate, but they did.
Yeah, it's worth thinking about what is happening. I think, my bringing up the red and the people putting red on it, because in ecology and ethological studies, we have this idea of a stimulus, right? And a response to that stimulus. And when you have something like the red dot on the side of a seagull, their beak, it's called a supernormal stimulus. And you can make that red. It doesn't matter if you put lipstick on it, that's more red. That's just a bigger red spot for the babies to poke at to say, press button, get food. And it's supernormal stimulus is high heels and red lipstick or red Ferraris, and I keep going to like red things because it's just easy and whatever as a supernormal example. But in this situation where, just like you mentioned, it went down, when we put red on it, we understand that red is not it is a stimulus, but it is not the supernormal stimulus. It is something else that they actually got in the way of. So this idea of hybridization, I think, is very interesting. And when hybridization happens, it's not extinction. It's just evolution and the mixing of zeros and ones.
Right.
Like,
yes.
We've come to understand, I've got a little bit of Neanderthal in me. What? They didn't go away. I still carry it, or whatever. Like,
yeah, the redhead genes, speaking of red, are Neanderthal, right? So you're right. You say hybridization to extinction because the kind of quote unquote pure version of this species wouldn't exist anymore. However,
named it species, but what does that mean?
Exactly. That is the kind of the quote unquote pure version of that species that we have picked in that exact moment in time. Who's to say how many hybridization events has happened in spider evolutionary history to get us to this point? We don't know. So,
And the other part of it is, how did the brown males get started? And it could be pretty interesting history, right? Maybe a giant maybe it was younger Dryas, or a dusty time, or even a frozen time when the surface of everything changed colors, and it happened to be the brown ones still managed to blend into the ground, but the red ones stood out, and so they were getting predated upon, to the point where the browns took over, and that was the selection process that made it so the brown ones, because these are in very disparate areas. They're some are up there in Washington and Canada, some are in the Four Corners region that are brown, and they're separated, and in between them is all of these red ones. So at some point, it makes it look like their territory must have been much, much bigger than it currently is, and we're just seeing the red-brown spider ratio heading maybe back the other way, and not so much, like a give and take kind of a thing.
It's a moment in time for us. Yeah. The yellow-billed magpies of the Central Valley, very different from all the other black-billed magpies everywhere else.
And the other thing too that we're leaving out of this is extinction by female selection, right? Like, this is also very driven by one sex of the species deciding this, and so we can maybe even see that if we looked at the Neanderthal lineage, because you don't see paternal male lineages anywhere in the current modern, which would be tough to get to at this point anyway. So it may have been just, this is all speculation, but it could have also been like female Neanderthals preferring the young current modern humans of the day, Homo sapiens as we as we interacted. And it may not have worked the other way. The female humans may have been like, Neanderthals? No thanks.
What about the spiders? What about the spiders? Who knows? They don't answer our questions. What do we want to say about the spiders? I'd like to tell you all that somebody had a pig lung transplanted into their chest, and it didn't go well.
Intentionally.
Yes.
Oh, man, I thought this was going to be a good story.
Well, it's the first time it's ever been, maybe it's been attempted before, but this is the first time that a genetically modified pig lung has been transplanted into a human recipient. The human was already brain dead and on life support systems. So the person had no reason to need this lung for survival at this point in time. It was attempted to test the idea of being able to transplant pig lungs into people and figure out what kind of xenotransplantation issues there might be. So pig organs aren't supposed to be the end all be all for getting people new organs. And they didn't expect this to go completely 100% well and to keep this person alive beyond this experiment. But what they did learn is that this Bama miniature pig, it had 6 CRISPR gene edits that are focused on minimizing immune system responses in a recipient. However, by 24 hours, there was a lot of edema, swelling that was occurring. They don't know whether or not that was the result of blood flow issues because of the transplant itself, or whether it was actually a rejection issue. They also found that there was 3 and 6 days later antibody-mediated rejection that they saw, and they say that it was primary graft dysfunction. And so this occurred, and this is the leading cause of death in lung transplant patients. And they saw that they were able to keep it going, and some recovery was taking place by day 9, but that was the end of their experiment, and so they didn't follow it any further. So the recipient, while brain dead and on life support, was also being given anti-rejection meds to modify and manipulate the response to the lung transplant. And there is, though, the factor that this person was on life support the entire time, so they don't actually know if the lung was functional at all. So this is kind of just a test. It was kind of just a test of, can we put it in there and what happens? And even though it had been modified to minimize rejection, the recipient still said no.
Wow, that's really interesting. So I guess, what is like a normal human to human lung transplant success rate? Is it decent?
For lung transplants, I am actually not sure. I think that's a really good question.
Because that sounds like really difficult. That sounds like a tough transplant to succeed with, even in the best circumstances. But the other thing I think is really interesting is, maybe this is a duh, but like, it didn't occur to me that you could like donate your body to science before you're dead.
That's what the whole organ donation driver's license thing is, Blair.
No, I thought that was if you were dead.
Right. But you're not dead. You say it's okay, and if you die, then they take your organs.
Right, but in this case, the person was alive. They were brain dead, and they were on. Oh, they needed it.
Yeah, they were the
They
recipient.
didn't take it from a guy who was sleeping, Blair. Come on now.
The guy got a pig lung.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying it sounded like the patient who received the pig lung was already brain dead and on life support permanently, right? So that person somehow indicated, you can do science on my body before I am dead.
Yeah, that's it.
Maybe.
Okay,
Which
that's
is
an interesting point.
different
Or the
than
family
being an
said,
organ donor. Right, but that's still something that is completely different from saying I want to donate my body to science. And that's a huge benefit to
Actually, Blair,
scientific
thank you
advances.
for pointing this out, because I also would like to point out that I have the standing do not unplug order. Even if I'm in the deepest and darkest of comas and have shown no response, I'm in here, I'm fine, didn't need any of you anyway.
Just keep my body
However-
going. I'd like it. I
however-
want to stay quiet.
Do not put any pig parts in me unless absolutely necessary.
Oh, sure. So, and Arlen Lore in the chat is saying brain dead is dead. So I understand what you're saying. However, legally, that is not true. Right?
What state do you live in? It might be.
Brain dead is
America has a lot of different laws depending on where this happens.
brain dead is usually if you unplug life support, the brain is no longer going to keep activity going to keep the heart and the lungs moving. And so the life support keeps the respiratory and cardiovascular system going. And that keeps you alive and keeps fluids going, but your brain is not making the electrical activity to control anything.
Right.
So
But
technically,
my
if you're
understanding
unplugged,
is that, like,
you're gone.
yes. Right. But
you
until
have to
that
unplug.
plug is removed, you are still alive. So
Depends
that's
on your definition and what state.
that's
So
that's
here's
what I'm
the thing.
saying is like you can't.
Here's the
Okay.
thing. Here's the thing. Just if that was true, we'd be like, and yeah, actually, we have a congressman from what was that town in southern South San Francisco with all the graveyards?
Colma.
Colma. Thank you. We have a new congressman from Colma because the on life support population there who have not been interred but have been managed to keep themselves.
Okay, but Justin,
plugged in,
you're making a joke.
now
But
exceeds the minimum requirement for having their own congressperson. We have the technology to have this everywhere.
We
And
do.
it's
But
not like
Justin,
people are
that's
getting
not far off from something that
murdered.
actually happened recently when a congressperson was missing and it turned out they had been in a nursing home for months and unable to care for themselves. But still an
want to
active
hear about
congressperson. Yes.
Oh
So
my
you're making a joke, but that's close to our reality, actually.
All right. So Blair,
My
you
point-
asked about the survival rate or success rate of lung transplants that are not pigs. That
This is
are
all just to give Kiki enough time.
I've had this for a
collect the
while,
data.
you people. So as of June 2014, median survival of 5.8 years of 89%. But it has been shown that chronic lung allograft dysfunction develops in about 50% of recipients about 5 years after lung transplant. And that's one of the major issues. So quality of life after about 5 years, as the immune system slowly decides that it's going to attack and eat the lungs, gets harder and harder. So
Yeah.
really
See, I think
not
this is-
long
Not good.
expectations. Yeah. Heart
I
transplantation
don't know
is
how
about
this
12
translates,
years. Mhm.
but I feel like I would not handle because I never get sick. I assume that my body is like attacking anything that is it deems foreign.
Do you have allergies?
No, nothing.
Okay, so that's indicative of not necessarily attacking anything that's foreign. Allergies are a hyperactive immune system that's going after stuff. If you don't have allergies, you might do well with a transplant.
Oh,
Good
well,
to
then
think of
it's okay. Well, I'm gonna change my order to fill me with as many young pig parts. I want the young.
Young
Don't give me
pig
some
parts.
old pig parts. Make sure they're like I want a fresh, young, healthy pig part. If you're going to,
Oh my
Oh
goodness.
my gosh. And it
I
must
don't
be
know.
genetically modified. Justin,
yes.
you want to tell me a story real quick?
Oh, what does it say that I got there? Oh, so this is just a fun one. the COVID-19 shots that we are used to just going into like the local pharmacy or whatever and getting, there's a big question about whether those are going to be available, because the new health secretary, R. F. Kennedy, fired every member of an advisory committee on immunization practices earlier this year.
Yeah.
ASIP. And basically, for insurance companies pretty much base whether or not they pay for something by whether or not it was recommended by ASIP. Actually, 19 states have laws and regulations that only let pharmacists administer vaccines recommended by ASIP. So there's states where, because it doesn't have a recommendation,
they're like, we'll get rid of it. We don't. There's nothing to recommend. There's no one to recommend. There's nothing there anymore. So no more vaccines because no one's recommending. Yeah. Is that the bottom line?
It's kind of what it's sounding like, right? And I finally, I think, understand the anti-vaxxers. I finally get it. Like, it took me this long. It's about who you trust. And I trusted that panel. And I trusted research. And I trusted doctors and everything. So if they all made the vaccine, looked at it, tested it, approved it, by the, I would feel very comfortable taking it. However, if our Francis Kennedy Jr. his team comes up with their version of a vaccine, would I take it? Hell no! You can't trust those things. God knows what they put into them. I get it now. Like,
not supported by science? What?
Yeah. I
ground
like
up crystals and swamp water in there.
I like the science version, and I'm not going to be a big fan of the woo-woo version of what they're calling vaccine.
Raw meat and raw milk in there, for sure.
Yeah. So now I get it. Now I understand what it would be like, finally, to not trust health advisory information
from your own government. Yeah,
from your own government. I get it now. It took this extreme change for me to be like, yeah, I would probably be an anti-vaxxer. I probably, when they come up with the nonsense that they're going to come up with, that they're going to try to get people to take, I think I'm going to abstain from it. I'm pretty sure.
You might not have to worry about the COVID vaccine because they might just be like getting rid of it this year anyway, so it might not be an issue in a couple of months. So keep an eye on.
Why not bring it back? It was so fun the first time. Nothing went wrong. Economy was good. Everybody survived. It was fine.
Yeah. Speaking of medicine and trusting your friends, Blair, you've talked previously about chimpanzees putting insects in their wounds. And there is a new paper out, just published in Scientific Reports, and it's the first insights of insect applications to open wounds by chimpanzees in the wilds in East Africa. So the Ngogo chimpanzee population in Kibale National Park, Uganda, there were 6 individuals, super large sample size, between November 2021 and July 2022. They were observed, 3 males, 3 females, putting flying insects in their wounds. Mostly they were taking the insects and grabbing them and then putting them in their mouths and then taking them and either applying them with their fingers or toes or their mouth to their own wounds. There was one observance of the application to another individual in the group. They observed also other individuals in the group watching while this was happening. So there's a question as to, is this how it's learned, kind of a thing? But the question is, why? What's going on? And what was interesting about this insect medicine is that we don't know. There was no testing of whether insect applications helped wounds heal any faster. But the chimpanzees, even though they put the flying insects, and it was only flying insects, never crawling insects, so only insects that had wings, they'd get them in their mouths. They didn't completely destroy them and smush them, but then they didn't eat them. After they used them, they would mess around with them a little bit, maybe, and then they'd discard them like a Band-Aid or something. So they were not food. It wasn't a toy. I mean, it was maybe a toy. Yeah, no idea, but this is another observance of this behavior in a separate population of chimpanzees. And so, it's really starting to question, the where and why this behavior came up, why these flying insects, why not others, what's going on here? Why don't they eat them? And is there learning that's happening? We don't know. They don't know anything.
The only way to find out, next time you have a cut, stick
a bug in
flying
it.
insect in there. Just kidding, don't do that.
Put a bug in it. Oh my God.
First, gather a bunch of them, put them in the blender, make a nice paste, then put that on the wound. Just kidding.
Delicious. Oh my God. This is This Week in Science. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am going to ask you right now to please share TWIS with your friends if you enjoy it. Head over to twis.org if you are interested in our show notes. Additionally, you can click on the Patreon link if you'd like to help support the show, the Zazzle link if you'd like some really cool TWIS merchandise, help support the show so that we can keep paying our bills here. It would be really great. And we thank you so much for your support. We really can't do it without you. Really can't. I mean, we could, but it would be like just the three of us talking. And I don't know how, I don't know. You're the best, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. You know what it is right now? It's that time in the show where we like to say, it's time for Blair's Animal Corner.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
Thank you so much for asking. I want to talk about, what should we do first? Cane toads. So, cane toads, also known as marine toads, they were introduced to Australia in 1935. They were introduced to various islands in the Caribbean around the same time, and in Oceania, like in Hawaii, for example. And they were brought into all these places to eat cane beetles. And guess what? They ate everything but.
They like other things.
Yeah. And so they have been just a complete nuisance. They have wreaked havoc on all of these different islands, but definitely Australia has done a lot to try to remove all of these cane toads. They're excellent at eating and reproducing, and they are just overrunning all of Australia. So pretty funny that in a space where there is just so many terrifying animals that you could run into, the cane toad is the big problem. Which, if you've never seen one, they're not as big as a bullfrog, but they're pretty sizable. They're bigger than a softball, probably.
They look cranky.
Yeah, they're very funny.
They're funny. A lot of people really enjoy them, but
yeah,
they're not nice.
No, and the other problem is that they can eat small rodents, they can eat lizards, they can eat other frogs, but also, no, not your cat. Australia would love it if they ate cats.
Birds.
Cats are a huge problem there. But the other problem is that lots of animals try to eat them, like birds, and they have a very particular poison that they secrete from their parotid gland, which is behind their eyes there. And so, because they are not from Australia, the animals that might eat them have not co-evolved with that poison. And so it pretty much kills them. And so not only are they just kind of like eating all animals out of house and home, but any predators that try to eat them will get sick and or die. And so they have just caused this huge problem. Well, researchers have just now stumbled onto potentially a solution to this problem, and that's through gene editing. And so specifically, they're using CRISPR-Cas9 to delete part of their DNA to prevent them from metamorphosing. So frogs, of course, start as tadpoles, and then they metamorphize. They turn into a frog. They change. And so if they don't do that, then you're stuck with a bunch of tadpoles. Now, sure, that's a problem for a bunch of reasons, like they can't leave a water source. They're stuck. They may or may not be able to reproduce as tadpoles. But the other thing is that they are cannibals when they are tadpoles. And so if you have a few tadpoles that are forever tadpoles, they call them Peter Pan tadpoles, never grew up, then they will just sit there in this body of water and eat and eat and eat the other tadpoles.
Well, they'll eat each other, and then they'll just be left and not able to grow up and have babies.
Correct.
And so it should
Correct.
reduce the population. But because they're cannibals, they'll also eat and eat and eat everything and never grow up into the parts of the life cycle that eat less.
Right. And also, they will not grow up to then mate and pass that mutation along. And that is the real problem here, is that right now you'd have to take a fertilized egg and a glass needle with a Cas9 mixture, inject it into that egg, and then put it back into the water. So obviously you can't do that to fix all of the cane toad problems. This is really just this is a key to a piece of a puzzle. Like, how can you make this work?
It would have to be kind of like the mosquito gene drive.
But
they're not doing that because it's the wrong part of the life cycle. But
right. So basically all they figured out is in isolated ponds to be able to create nuisance tadpoles that will eat the other tadpoles and will not be able to grow up. Essentially, that also sterilizes them so that they don't have an ecological risk. They can't have this run away into another species or into, all of the cane toads are like this now, which would be fine. It's Australia. It's a island. That's not an issue.
But if cane toads happen to interbreed with other native toads, you don't want it to be like,
they're forever tadpoles too. Yeah, that would be bad. But so they kind of have a start-stop here. A brand new approach to taking care of an invasive species that goes through a metamorphosis by stopping it from doing that metamorphosis through gene editing. The other thing about it is that at the same time, they were able to make them albino as well, so you can visually see which ones are edited and which ones are not. So that's very cool. But the other thing is that they are not...
Great collector's toad.
Yes, absolutely. They are not technically mutants. They are not technically genetically modified under Australian law because all they did is make a single deletion that prevented them from metamorphosing. They did not change a trait.
It could have been natural.
Yeah. So they're not genetically modified. They just deleted something.
So hang on. I'm sorry because I know I missed part of this. How do they get a grown-up toad?
They don't, and so that's the problem.
Because
it would be like the mosquito stuff.
No, because the mosquitoes
Well, they try and
Well,
you put all the sterile males or females in, and then hopefully
okay.
the babies are sterile or like they never grow up
Okay.
there. And then
Right.
because you
Yes.
put so many of the not mutant mutants into the population, that it messes up the reproductive dynamics. And you have, and you just have to keep doing it over and over again until you just have a bunch of cannibalistic tadpoles.
Yeah. That's tough,
Yeah,
'cause
so
that sounds like a lot
Professor
of one-off.
Emeritus, Professor Emeritus Rick Shine, who led the team behind this idea, he says, I would be astonished if we could actually eradicate toads using the kinds of methods we're talking about, but I think we could massively knock down their numbers and make them a relatively scarce animal. So he doesn't think you can completely remove the cane toad by doing this, but he does think you could impact the numbers. I want to hear what the strategy for making the edits would be, because as it stands right now, taking a glass needle to a specific egg in a clutch of 30,000 is not going to help. So I don't know. You'd have to find a way to just like squirt it in the pond and have it infuse into the egg somehow, right?
Or like what they do with mosquitoes is they have the lab bred sterile mosquitoes that then they release into the natural area, and they release so many of them that they get in the way of normal breeding practices, so that the males and females, they think that they've done the deed, but they haven't. And so then there's no babies born.
But see, I think it's gonna be a tough pill to swallow for the Australian government to say, I'm going to release thousands of toads.
I'm not arguing that.
I'm having a hard time understanding why you would do that versus just like your version of it, Kiki, with mosquitoes, just sterile toads. Why? At what point is it at all different? So
especially since
it's because it's Justin, it's specifically because the tadpoles are carnivorous. So the idea is that instead of just preventing a toad from reproducing, you're releasing a carnivorous tadpole that never grows up into a pool, and they will systematically eat every baby tadpole in that pool.
Of any other kind. Okay, now it makes sense. Now I can see the path. Okay, that makes sense. I thought it just made him stuck him at tadpole.
Oh yeah. They do that, but they also, they stay there much longer than they're supposed to be before they die, and then they get to eat all the
carnivorous.
I really need an
as long
Australian.
As they only eat other tadpoles.
I really need
because now we're like major fish lake decline because of carnivorous tadpoles is decimating the fishing. Go ahead, Kiki. I can see you're having a fit. Somebody quick, get her an EpiPen.
All these words, but seriously, Australian horror movie, tadpole.
Yes.
And all it is a
gets
pond.
Bigger and bigger.
The dog goes out to the pond.
Yeah, like
what happened to Fluffy? I don't know. It's just the toad pond. What? Tadpole.
Swallow the dog to eat the cat, to catch the mouse that ate the fly.
Right, did you have another
perhaps she'll die. Yes, yeah. You want to talk about bird poop? So I originally read this the headline for this article, and I went, duh. Okay, so I have to explain my thought process. Seabirds only poop while flying, researchers observe. I said, duh. But I realized what my brain did. My brain turned it backwards in that, generally speaking, seabirds poop while flying, and non-seabirds, things like pigeons or perching birds, don't. Okay?
Right before,
and so...
They lighten up.
Right before. They want to lighten up, absolutely, and they don't do a lot of pooping while they're in the air. That's not to say you can never be pooped on by a pigeon that's flying over your head, but it is much more likely that you will get pooped on by a seagull than by a pigeon in flight. And so my brain was like, yeah, duh, seabirds poop while flying. But the piece here is the only. Seabirds only poop while flying. Seabirds do not appear to poop while perched or specifically while floating on the water. Now, what I love about this is that this was an accidental.
Everything. Okay. Go ahead.
This is an accidental study. Okay. So already more research is needed. This is an accident.
That can't be true.
So, researchers were studying how seabirds run on the sea surface to take off, which is mechanically a really weird thing that birds do. I'm an albatross, or I'm a seagull, or I'm a puffin, and I'm sitting on the water, and I all of a sudden decide I'm going to start flying in a second here. And so you kind of swim, which turns into a run, which I'm kicking my feet on the top of the water, and I'm flapping, and I get in the air. And so that's like, mechanically, it's a really weird thing that they can do, that they can go from floating on the water to flying. And so researching that, watching videos, Leo Osaka from University of Tokyo found that they were dropping feces frequently, which, like, it's a bird, duh. But then the more that he looked at it, the more he thought the pattern was really interesting. And what he found was, these are specifically streaked shearwaters. They poop while flying. They do not poop while they're floating on the water. And they do it every 4 to 10 minutes. So this is where I have to bring in the numbers. Because he was noticing this, he put eraser-sized backward-facing cameras strapped to their bellies on 15 streaked shearwaters, so 15 birds. Already not sounding like an excellent sample size. It's okay, but it's not excellent. Also, just this one species, I will say. And he recorded and analyzed around 200 defecation events. Now, I did some math. It's time for math in Blair's Animal Corner, okay?
Yeah!
So,
Poop math.
if they are pooping every 4 to 10 minutes, all right, and he looked at 200 defecation events. Now, in a day, there is 1,440 minutes. So if you're doing the long one, they're only pooping every 10 minutes. This equates to, cumulatively, slightly more than a day in this bird's life. In the number of... And then if you divide it by 15, oh my god, so then it's like... Hold on, I have to finish my math. So now if I divide that by 15, right? So now we have, about 100. And then you divide that by 10, it's only like 10 defecation events per... No, wait. 10 hours per bird. I lost my units. I need to stoichiometry this again. But basically, my point is the amount of time that they're doing this. Here, let me fix this. So, okay. So we have every 10 minutes. Okay. We have 200 events. So that's roughly 2,000 minutes of footage. Okay. Divided by 15. That's only 133 minutes per bird. That's 2 hours a bird. There we go. So this is not a good amount of data, ultimately. Like 200 defecation events sounds really good, but once you dig down into the math, now you're stuck with like, I watched each bird for cumulatively like 2 hours. Like that's not very good, right? So yes, it's every 4 to 10 minutes, but that's for this very specific snapshot in this very specific subset of this very specific species, right? And now all that to say, yes, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and like, you're only looking at them during a particular season, which may be a season where they're doing more foraging and more activity, and bird defecation is a lot of urea, so a lot of like ammonia, like nitrogen compounds, which are going to be the metabolites from muscle use. And so maybe when they're flying more, they poop more, so it's like part of just the metabolic energy, like sustaining the homeostasis of an energetic flight over the ocean over a period of time. Yeah.
So, but there's
right?
There's pieces here that are interesting. So, for example, they estimated that the birds excrete about 30 grams of poop an hour, which is about 5% of their body mass. And some seabirds spend hours or days in the air. And if they are doing that, then they do indeed need to excrete as often as possible, because if you are a bird that weighs a pound, every 30 grams counts, right? And so that is an important piece, that you have to constantly be dumping anything extra to keep your weight down, right? So that makes sense.
And another side to this is from the like metabolism physiology point of like the human kidneys and processing just blood flow through the kidneys, is that you process the entire body's blood supply within 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes you get like a new fresh supply of urine. So if you're flying and you're doing all sorts of stuff, then, you know, maybe it's equally, you know, how much are their kidneys working? Because this is the cloaca, the common urogenital tract. So this is everything. Poo, pee, blee, blah, it's all together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting about this is that, again, I'm going to call this anecdotal because of the amount of data that we have here, but they found that on several occasions in their recordings, the birds took off solely for bathroom breaks and then returned to the water within a minute. So they came off of the water to poop and then came back. So they are intentionally avoiding pooping while floating. This is really interesting. This isn't just, I am flying, therefore I need to poop. This is, I have to poop, therefore I need to fly. And so, as Usaka says, they have to flap their wings vigorously to take off. It exhausts them. The amount of energy it takes to take off as a bird is enormous, right? And so that means that the risk of excreting in the sea outweighs the effort to take off. So there has to be a good motivation to want to fly just to poop. And so there's a bunch of different theories of why that might be. It might be because it would foul their feathers, right? Because like whatever compounds are in the poop, if that touches their feathers at the same time as water, their feathers could actually end up wet. It could ruin the kind of hydrophobic character that the feathers have by exposing it to some of the compounds in the pee and poo, right? It could also,
and then the seals and the fish.
Yes.
And
so that was the other one.
Yeah.
They don't want to give away their location, right? Or it could just be mechanical. Maybe it's easier for them to release their bowels while they're flying versus when they're on water. Like I myself have never tried to poop while swimming, but maybe it is more difficult. I don't know. Someone would have to tell me about what that experience felt like. But it's possible that having the water pressure right up against the cloaca could make it harder to release feces, right? So, sorry.
I like that.
The human body doesn't like to release while standing.
Right.
I mean, there's a certain like angle. Anyway, you would think what, Justin?
Well, I think I like the first version because if you poop in the water and then the wave hits you, you're like
poopy.
You could get covered by your own poop pretty quick, or your neighbor poopy or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin Reardon in the chat says you'll never get pooped on by a seagull unless you're on a sailboat. I do have one anecdote of somebody in the driver of a car I was a passenger in. Getting pooped on by a seagull in the car because apparently the poop was coming down at a trajectory that just matched the open window.
God,
and
that's terrible.
I was like, that's really lucky. He's like, no, this doesn't feel like luck.
Well, if they're doing it every 4 to 10 minutes, it's not very lucky, is it? It happens a lot. But yeah, so ultimately, like, why do we care? I always like to ask that question. Why do we care how often birds are pooping? Why do we care how they poop? Well, there's a lot of research on how bird poop and other animal poop helps enrich soil. There's not a lot of research on how bird poop and other poop enriches the ocean. And in the case of birds, that's bringing stuff directly from land into the ocean. It's helping to fertilize kind of the phytoplankton and the stuff we were talking about. So it is important for their habitat to know kind of like how that works. But it is really important to know, like, behaviorally, if they need to do certain things to survive, and defecation is part of survival. So next steps they suggest for this study are to use cameras or temperature sensors with longer battery life. I'm guessing that's why they only had 200 defecation events. They want to combine it with GPS to map the seabirds to look at where they are releasing their droppings in the sea. They could even then measure certain nitrogen, phosphorus, other levels in areas that are high defecation areas, see if that kind of correlates. You could see what kind of species are in those areas where birds are pooping more. There's lots that you could do to kind of explore this a little bit more.
So that is a big point too, because if they didn't do this, they would have died off. Maybe there have been studies that I don't know if you brought it or I brought it, but we talked about it at some point about an ecosystem where that was completely dependent on the birds of the island pooping over the water, because the reefs and the fish and the whole ecosystem there needed that to grow. And that was also the food that the birds were then eating, as they would go and get the top of that food chain, which was the fish. And if they were doing all of their pooping on the island, then there wouldn't be the fish population there for them to eat, and they would have died off, and they wouldn't be birds on that island or fish surrounding that island, right? Or the reef system. So it could also just be that's their role in their ecosystem, and if they didn't participate in it, they wouldn't be here if that wasn't what they did.
Right. Yeah.
The reason we see seagulls today.
Seagulls are so widespread, though. I mean, we have seagulls that use Mono Lake as breeding ground, Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake. We've got like seagulls that you find inland, because seagulls is a misnomer. They're gulls. Gulls that end up over the sheer waters are coastal, like ocean going birds. But not all birds are going to be the same. And we obviously have a lot of poop covered rocks that suggest there's a lot of birds that poop on rocks as well. So the whole thing is an interesting
very fair point. Yeah.
Who poops there and why?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I will argue pooping on a rock is different from pooping on the ocean. And so I think that is definitely the poor language in kind of the coverage of this study was talking about that as a binary. And of course, those are not the only two options. You can poop on a rock, you can poop on a tree, you can poop on a boat. There are lots of places that you can poop that is not just the ocean or Blair, the air. Yeah.
Blair, this is like your book.
Where can I poop?
It's my Dr. Seuss.
You can poop on a boat. Book. You can poop on a rock. You can poop on. You can poop in the air.
Yeah. I will answer one question in the chat. Does poop float or sink? So it depends. Bird poop is, in this case, this particular kind of bird poop, but usually bird poop that is eating a wild diet is essentially liquid. It's like a white liquid. Like Kiki was saying, it's a mixture of urea and poop. And so it is mostly a liquid. It just kind of hit the surface of the water and kind of disperse. And there might be, sorry if anyone's eating, there might be some like chunks that kind of sink down into the water column, but for the most part, it is going to kind of disperse onto the surface and then descend. For other animals that are not birds, really depends on what they're eating. So.
Thank you, Blair.
Sorry.
Sorry. You're welcome, everyone.
It's so funny. In my day job today, I spent so long looking at diagrams of scat. This is a very poop-filled day for me.
Some days are poopy, and that's okay. Because it's science. Justin, you have a story before we head out on our Tight 90 show?
Yeah, what is that? Is it the Justin trashes a story?
Yeah.
All right, I'll try to make this quick. This is Henan University of Technology, which also is a University of Grinding Equipment, is part of their thing. They're a bunch of engineers in China. They're reporting on the development of a lightweight lattice-based limb design for a bionic robot, which sounds very fancy. And what this is they have a computer simulation that is designing for them a lattice framework internally that can make it lighter weight and still have all of the torsion and strength it would need to be sort of the lower limb where the, for something like a robot or something that needs lots of torsion, but also needs to carry a load. It can have some bending, but not too much that it becomes brittle. It is research on lower limb lightweight of bionic robot based on lattice structure unit published in Scientific Reports. Researchers claim to have created an innovative structural configuration library using a topology optimization and applied it to designing this bionic limb. Okay. Unfortunately, the paper is entirely unreliable. It is unclear if this, to me at least, if this paper was poorly translated, unskillfully formatted, AI manufactured, or simply contains errors. And actually, I think I have an even better idea of what it might be. But it did make it, it was submitted by the authors in this form. It apparently was accepted for publication. It was peer reviewed, made it through that process, and it was made it through the publisher's editorial staff. Who can read everything? So there's some plausible errors. There is a study that they sort of say like this was proposed way back when, and it was Evans et al. 2001 is incorrectly cited as being from 2000 and attributed to Ivana. So that could be a minor error, right? Translation error, transposing error, something like this. It's in the introduction. It's not like the citation at the end. The citation at the end of the paper is actually correct, but in the bulk of the paper, it's incorrect. But that's not really a big deal. They did 20 lattice structures that they were going to be simulating in the computer that they were going to then test to see how well they matched. And they have a little reference that sort of shows the weights of things. And in there, one of the things that they tested, according to this, is among the lattice structures tested, unit number 14 demonstrates the highest stiffness in contrast to number 1, which exhibits the poorest bending performance. And with a maximum displacement of this and a relative density of that. Okay. The problem is the relative density that it says that looks like they're talking about number 1 actually belongs to 14. So it's sort of like, okay, maybe it was bad wording. Maybe it was something like this.
Oh, no.
Later, they also in this state that the number 1 had the highest displacement, but it shows the third highest displacement on the graphs that they offer. Again, the relative density is attributed to the wrong thing. So there's a couple mistakes there. Not just that they got the density wrong, but they also placed it in the wrong place in terms of how well it did against the others. Then they state that when subjected to torsion, the number 4 lattice structure unit experiences a maximum displacement and deformation of 0.012 with a relative density of blah, 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 and exhibits the high stiffness of this. Okay, the problem is it is mistakenly being given the density of yet another, number 13. So it's again confused the density of the one that it keeps kind of going back to and talking about as being a top performer, which is number 14. So further issues, there's a detailed table showing the optimization. It says the volume has been reduced by 23%, which is fine. That seems to match. Its stiffness was increased by a factor of 1.97, but there's never any point in which they explain how that the stiffness was increased by a factor of 1.9. There's no data backing up the stiffness increase. It doesn't seem to be related to any of the supply data. And they also say that it had a weight decrease of over 23%, but then you look at the data that they provide, and it would be 19.4%. So that doesn't match either. But there's a big tell. There's a big tell coming. Figure 13, which I think we have there, if you're doing any kind of a sharing. on this. If we go down, I want to show this because this is the part when I finally I kept getting confused because none of the I kept trying to quote what the study was saying about things, and then it kept not matching their data tables. This one's really interesting. So that very first sort of starry looking red line that's going up there, and you look over the legend, that's number 14. Number 14 looks like in this bending displacement that it had the least displacement out of anything, which is kind of nice for, for it's also showing that it can, handle torsion and some other things. That's really much better than the rest of them. Okay, so now with that up, I'm going to read a section of this. The paper states that in figure 13 presents the low displacement curves under 3 bending points. A considerable difference in deformation behavior was observed among the specimens. Specimen number 3 exhibited the greatest bending deformation, while specimen number 16 experienced the least deformation, recording only 1.278. But where is 16? 16 is not the first. 16 is not the second. 16 is somewhere in there. But the one that they have there that has the greatest deformation.
It's top, actually. It's one of the higher. Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
14.
it's near 14. Yeah, 14 is the least.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here it's describing 14 as the least
When it shows 16.
on the graph, but is saying 16 is the outer limit in the text. And again, it does this figure, the next figure 14, which I don't think is shown in the study, does this again. It presents low displacement curves of lattice structure units under torsional conditions. This time, 3 exhibited the largest angular displacement and 13 showed the smallest. And yet that one also shows 14 as having the smallest displacement under torsion. So
it looks like 19 might, I don't know. I mean, it's just a picture here. We can't see the data, but
and so it's a different one than right?
Oh, this is 14.
So it's
yeah.
You're looking at 13. 14 I didn't get added here. But 14 it does basically the same thing. Figure 14 shows the unit 14 having the best result, but when you look at the text analysis in the study, it's not mentioned. So this is sort of, to me, this was like the big kind of aha moment, which is, it seems like it might have been added after the fact. It's a hero of the study. It's the thing making this significant is there's this one thing that they discovered through their modeling that's outperforming everything on all of these tests. And then there's another tell, because when they went to actually do testing, they picked number 10. They picked a completely different one than the one that they're showing as outperforming everything. So what this looks like to me is a low impact paper that found a result that might have been pretty expected without anything that was being exceptional in the discovery, other than their computer modeling predicted correctly how we expected already things to behave. But I'm going to quote, because I got a little, this is Justin writing mad. Possibly this is an example of a low impact paper that then found a second life within the murky underworld of a paper mill poofery, adding in a layer of fabricated significance to increase the impact of an otherwise expected finding. Because all of a sudden, this is here. And then there's further aspects of this too. Figure 15 has another thing that again shows things that can't be consolidated. That just sort of looks like they've done sort of a combination, it seems, of adding this hero into their study, this 14 that's doing these amazing things, that's taking credit some places for other ones' work. right? So, oh, here's the one that was the best. We'll just slap 14 in its place, but then forgot to change the densities that were talked about. And that's why it doesn't match up. Or they forgot to change their analysis portion of it to include that one. And to me, this is like so egregious also just because this is a scientific paper, scientific reports that should have caught it. This is within Nature, and you can say it's their fast track. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it needs to get read. It needs somebody to peer review it, and it needs to be accepted by the journal as a real piece. And I think the point of it is that nobody was supposed to read this. That this is supposed to be
it's just
enough
published
under the radar that somebody would get credit for publishing it. Somebody would get paid for accepting it for publication. The scientific reports takes money, probably in the neighborhood of $2,500 to $3,000, if not more, to publish this. And yeah, that it can be published without being read is a red flag for quality control and publishing integrity. And yes, somebody was Arlen, I think, was mentioning it earlier. Yeah, I think it should be retracted. I think it should be a retraction, but I don't think it's going to be because I don't think they care. I don't think it's going to be read. There's I've seen other coverage of it. We're like, oh yeah, they found this interesting lattice, and this could be great for robotics or aerospace, blah blah blah. But nobody's really reading the study. And at some point, some engineer will sit down with this, having heard like, oh, maybe they got the secret sauce on this lattice. Let me see what they did. They're gonna get partway through this, and they'll catch it quicker than I will, and they'll go, just this isn't useful, and toss it, and that's fine. They won't think twice about it. But they're not going to go to like scientific reports and be like wagging their old man grumpy finger and saying, "Hey, you shouldn't have ever published this."
Old man grumpy finger.
But it's not like these paper mills, and that's what it looks like. It looks like they almost have like a different tone when they're talking about this hero configuration that they saw that they then didn't test. It's obviously like added after the fact, and it was done very sloppily, and it was done very crudely, and it's very obvious once you realize what's happening.
And what I'm looking through here is that it seems as though there were simulations that they have these lattice structural experiments. Yes. And they did print a bunch of stuff and
they printed all 20 and tested, and then made one into the little units, so subunits of those structures, and then the number 10 unit is the one that they actually selected to turn into a robotic limb and further test it. But yeah, what we were looking at on that chart is the physical testing. But you'll see the same thing in the simulations where it's almost as if they picked number 14 and tried to give it data that other units came up with. At some point, it's saying it's on the simulations that it scored the lowest on, I can't remember which compression or something like this, one of the tests. But even if you look at that chart, it looks like 13 is a little lower, but the charts aren't scaled. The charts are scaled so all of the lows look like a flat line near zero, even though they're point this or point that and dramatically different. One's 0.12 and one's 1 or 0.44. So those should be, 5 ticks or so, a couple of ticks difference, but they're just a flat line on the bottom because none of their graphic representations are scaled in a way that you can see a difference between the critical factors where you would want to see those big performance differences. It's just sort of
I was noticing that too, like those figures we were looking at where there were a bunch piled on top of each other. That's not a helpful graphic, especially when they are all different versions of lines with tick marks on them. It's very hard to see what you're looking at.
And so, I mean, very often the images are in studies are supposed to be there to help you understand, but they are not necessarily the end all be all. They should match what you're reporting, but the data is is what it all comes down to. And you can make mistakes on assessment and how you present it, but
and how they present, the only point where they present raw data is the weights, and that's where I first started to see all these discrepancies, where they're attributing a density to one item, but it belonged to a different one. If they presented more raw data, maybe I would have caught it quicker, but they didn't. They the raw data that they provided for these what these assessments were based on is they showed those infographics that are horrible that you can't really tell.
You're just getting so spoiled by open science and open data. I mean, come on. What do you think? Researchers are just going to put their data out there for anyone to analyze and try to reproduce their experiments?
Okay.
Come on.
And so here's the geopolitical version of it, which is Chinese engineers and authoritarian government discover lattice building material system that can massively improve load and torsion for aerospace, robotics, defense, and cars and everything else. And then they shared it with an open. So, if there was a real study that they did find something great, I don't think we would be hearing about it in the first place. So, there's all kinds of layers of. Then you could even be saying, is this an intentional false flag information? Oh, we'll tell them that this works, even though it was terrible. There's all kinds of layers you can put on top of it. But the fact that in their own paper that they give you are all of the examples of it not being, of contradictions and things not being aligned and not work, and for it to still make it through a publication like that. I need to start writing research papers and get myself a long list. Just pick stuff that nobody wants to read. I figured out what that is pretty quickly because I've had to cover some of those. And I'll just start getting I have so many citations. And their citations are iffy too because they're real citations, but there's so many of them and they don't seem to always have anything to do with what they're talking about.
And what we are seeing in some of these is actually what we're seeing in a lot of these graphs is there's no error bars. These are data points. No. There's not averages. They're just, they did one test. They did test and they did simulation and experiment.
So the one that's on the bottom there.
And they match so well. It's amazing.
C is exactly what I was trying to describe. C, you've got between 12 and 15, they're all almost at 0. But the data points for them are all different. And based on the data that they provided, 14 is showing there at 0.12, and 13 is at 0.4 something.
Okay. I have a question. A question.
But 13
if these are all different lattice structure units and they're individual measures of different structures, why is this a line graph?
Yeah, I was wondering that same question.
Why are they connected?
Yeah.
No.
There's no reason.
I had the exact same thought. I was like, this isn't a continuous.
This isn't a continuous measure.
There's no time point.
It's lattice structure unit. So they're all connected.
Yeah, this should be a bar graph.
It should be a table.
It should be a table. You're absolutely right. You could even do a table with the little bars in it if you wanted to make it really fancy looking. But you're right. It should be a table, but they wanted to obfuscate the
and it makes it impossible. And there's if you were back on that, the 13 that's supposed to be 3 or 4 times higher than the 14 is on a slightly lower pixel than the 14. It's manufactured. This is makety up world that we're in. But if you
Yeah.
pay, if you buy the ticket, you get to ride at Scientific Advances. It's not real anymore. It used to be. I don't think it's real anymore. Now I don't
It's
trust
fun.
anything that comes out.
Quite
of
a few
science.
people in in different chats are saying they think that large language model or AI wrote it, which it
I
does.
don't. I actually don't. I actually don't, because I think there was a real study, and I think somebody has
That's
layered.
not to say there's not a study. You could feed your data to
Into an
ChatGPT and
AI,
ask them to
yeah.
write you
Yeah.
a paper and
They would've
include graphs.
So I don't see a whole lot of, at least the tells that I would expect from something like that.
And along those lines,
it just looks like a different author.
there is a great resource from Wikipedia. The Wikipedia editors have created a resource to identify AI or large language model writing in writing.
Do we have time to drop that study in there?
I will put it in the chat. I will find it and put it in the chat. But it's something that we should
That would be
all
fun.
be aware of. But additionally, I mean, these are individuals from Chinese research institutions that potentially, they could be great at English. They could also have used AI to write it to make it look really nice in English. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think any good assessment and peer review of this should have ripped it apart, just like you did.
I'll have a new one next week that I think is even more egregious.
Something
Even
new.
though it's more subtle, I think it's much worse.
So I'm going to come into my last stories to finish up the show tonight for our really, really, short, tight show. Phantom limb. We've talked through the years about the ideas of how phantom limb syndrome happens in the brain, right? And there's all these ideas. So when you lose a limb and an amputation occurs for whatever reason, there are people say, you lose your hand. People say, I can still feel the fingers. I know it's there. And people get really upset about it because it's not there, obviously, and they can't use it. And so there are therapeutic methods that people have come up with to try and train people out of these feelings. As we were learning about phantom limb syndrome, and I think it was Ramachandran. No, there was a neuroscientist down at UCLA who was talking about the mirror therapy, where you put your amputated hand on the side of a mirror where you can't see it. You put your real hand, the other hand that's there, so that you can see it in the mirror. And because of the mirror image, you can start imagining that you're moving it in synchrony with, and so you start to teach your brain what is real and what is not through this mirror image therapy. Brain plasticity knowledge started letting us come up with this idea of, wait, okay, so the homunculus in the brain, where our brain body map exists in our sensory cortex, that might be malleable, and that if you lose your fingers or your hand, that the area of your face, your lips, or your foot may encroach, that because those neurons are still active, they're like, hey, you're not working anymore. I'm going to take over this practice. And the idea was that over time, maybe the phantom limb syndrome wasn't just these old signals still being active, that it wasn't something from the peripheral nervous system, that it was actually happening in your primary sensory cortex, and that it was a result of plasticity and your lips being too excitable. And so or your nose, say your nose itches and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel my hand is here, right? So people started saying maybe it's this overlapping of sensory areas. And that became the accepted and acknowledged paradigm, is that our somatosensory cortex could change. Well, a group of researchers just publishing in Nature Neuroscience. They have a study called Stable Cortical Body Maps Before and After Arm Amputation. They actually hung out with 3 adults before their arms were amputated and for up to 5 years after. Very small sample size, only 5 people, but they observed behaviors, their responses, explanations, and also fMRI and other measurements of their actual brain activity. What they found is that, hey, nope, our somatosensory cortexes are super stable and they just like to be what they are, and that our lips stay where our lips are going to be, and our missing hand, that is just neuronal material that's there. And it's ready should you get a hand in the future. And so they tried to do a whole bunch of mirror training. They did all sorts of therapies and different interventions to try and see what would happen. And they found that there was pretty much no change in the cortical map of the somatosensory cortex. So the whole idea that brain neuroplasticity allows your lips to take over, encroach into that area next to it and be more sensory, and that our somatosensory cortex changes, according to this study, with only 3 people, but for a very long time period. And it's the first time that they've ever done this kind of a long-term, longitudinal study like this. There's no change. The activation is the activation, and that's it. And so what they suggest is that phantom limb syndrome is not necessarily something that occurs within the brain, and that it's not something that is triggered within the sensory cortex, that it actually might be something peripheral that we are not aware of. But the bottom line is that they say we've got it wrong.
We know what it is not, which is the most important part of doing science.
And then, so Aaron Lore here is saying, have we figured out how to regrow hands yet? And the answer is no, not hands, but we do have a, hey, what happened to that study? Where'd that one go? Oh, no. Anyway.
So hang on. Let me catch you.
No.
We can't do hands, but we can do butt.
No, we can do rat spinal cords. They created 3D printed channels for spinal dissections. So basically they cut rat spinal cords, which it would be like you're in a car accident and something severs your spinal cord and you'd be paralyzed. We know that those neurons, they kind of want to grow back together, but they're like, oh, this is so hard, and I don't really know where to go. And it takes a really long time, and there's all these competing signals. And so the neurons have a really hard time reconnecting. They 3D printed channels that they put the neurons and the spinal cord in, and the spinal cord regrew in the rats. And so, yeah, and it was faster and better. It's like, the bananic
You
woman.
gave him a conduit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The bananic woman.
the $6 man and the bananic woman. But we can't regrow hands yet. But there are technologies that are being advanced that may allow us to help in cases of paralysis, and understanding this about the way that the cortical map stays consistent. This could help us with some of our treatments for amputation. So, the prostheses. There are lots that we're looking at now because we know there are active signals that can come down to the ends of the nerves at the end of the amputated limb, and that they're ready to go and they want to do something. And so those signals can be used. And so maybe you do just need to put a hand back on the limb, and that part of the cortical map will go back into work if you do it right. So that's kind of what this study is suggesting. But again, it was, 3 people. But it's a very solid result.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then even beyond that, if you got big thumbs, you might have big brains. Researchers did an evolutionary analysis of thumb size in primates and neocortex size. And basically they were like, oh, hey, look, there's no link to the cerebellum, but neocortexes get bigger when your thumbs get bigger. And the relationship they suggest has to do with dexterity. So I don't know, having to or being able to manipulate objects with your crazy big thumbs gives you a bigger brain and that makes you smarter. I don't know. I would also like to say that whenever people do these kinds of correlative evolutionary comparisons, take it with a grain of salt because correlation is not causation.
Yeah.
And even though they kind of controlled for body size, they basically said, well, because body size, like, it wasn't a thing really in our data, we were just like, let's just get rid of it. So,
yeah, it's one of the first things I thought of because I did see this study this week was, so did I get way dumber when I lost all the dexterity in my hand?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes, when you sprain your hand, that's it.
Right.
No,
so
that's
of
not...
course I was thinking about that too, like people who are born with certain disabilities related to their hands, or they have, arthritis, or they have like any sort of other kind of challenges with their dexterity. That does not mean that their brain is not as big as the average person. This is working on averages across species. And so it's like,
yeah, and this is a study into evolutionary adaptation.
Yes. Yeah.
To why do we have bigger brains than our closest relatives, right? Like, why as primates, like, people are like, it's because we ate fish. Oh, it's because we like to do downhill skiing. No, it's because we have big thumbs. So,
but it's more likely that dexterity followed from cognition, if you think about it, because like that has brought the ability to manipulate tools, use things in a way you haven't used them before, think critically when you're holding something. Like, so there's,
you have a big thumb, so use it. Is your brain going to like get up to the challenge, right?
That's assuming it's a use thing. What if it's just a developmental stage thing,
right?
Where big brains are developing, like there's a thumb brain development parallel that's taking place.
That's what they say.
Utero, that
not in utero, in primates. And so
but I mean, I'm saying that but maybe in primates, their brain and thumb go through a significant development stage where they're both growing, and so if you have that stage extended, you get a little bit larger brains, and then you get bigger thumbs, and versus something that's got a hoof.
We know that there's like one of one finger is like one of our fingers gets longer with more testosterone or something.
My question then is like, how have you been looking? Next time you're in the room of you think your smartest friends, measure their thumbs.
Fingers. Yeah,
measure their thumbs. Take a look. Take a couple measurements.
Are you John
maybe we're rushing to judgment just because of how dumb it sounds.
What about if you have hitchhiker's thumb? What does that mean?
Brilliant. They used to. Einstein is actually a famous
Hitchhiker's Guide to
hitchhiker.
the Galaxy right there.
My goodness.
Bring your
Einstein used to hitchhike everywhere. But you will never see him in a picture wearing gloves. Couldn't get any that fit.
So, the researchers suggest that our thumbs and brains co-evolved, that there was neocortex growth tied to cognition, sensory processing. It wasn't for movement control necessarily, but because we were processing stuff better and had smarter thinking, that dexterity improved and intelligence then both together. Co-evolution. Anyway, I also just want to say correlations.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a nice thing that you can't really prove.
Yep.
Yeah. This is one of those great things. You can't, there's no, I can prove it kind of thing. Last story though, I just want to talk about though, how we talk about the world. As we go into the week and we talk about the world, how many times tonight have we used words to describe our world that are interesting and complex and not related to urban environments, but related to nature? How much do we talk about nature? I think on this show we talk about nature a lot, actually, but
well, we have so it's kind of like unfair because we have Blair. So
we talked about birds pooping in the ocean or in the air or on rocks. Red spiders or brown spiders.
All Blair talks about is nature, 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 nature.
But yeah. I mean, is there only one word? Nature, 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 nature. I went to nature. Nature was nice. Then I went to the hot, sticky urban jungle, asphalt, pavement, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, researchers just published an analysis of the words and using Google Books Ngram Viewer for the period 1800 to 2019, mapping frequencies of words associated with nature. River, meadow, coast, bow, beak, wing. He avoided species names because those are very localized. And but anyway, over time, there is a clear decline in the use of words related to nature in the books that are available in this database. Now, the books themselves may be, that is a biased sample set, but at the same time, these are books from 1800 to more modern day. Now, what do you think was the big thing that kind of set this off?
Oh, people being in the world and no longer of it on some level?
Yeah. So the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s is thought, and urbanization is thought to have kicked this trend off. But it's fascinating at how low the words in this Ngram frequency analysis have gotten compared to the 1800s. Currently, we're on a little tiny bit of an uptick, but it's kind of sad, everybody. Go touch grass.
Well, so I'm looking at the scale on the year part of the graph. I'm actually wondering if any part of that uptick is during COVID.
Because, a little bit, but it was previous to.
Right, I see that it started before that.
Just like because 1970s, like Silent Spring.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But specifically during COVID, people were going into nature in a way that they weren't before because that's all they were allowed to do. And so that's interesting. Mm-hmm. I also, some of it could be generational if you're looking at it on these larger scales. Like, hey, in 1950, the TV was invented. There's a huge, it was around 1950. There's a huge drop right around that time. And it continued to go down when, like, my generation, we weren't just sent outside, come back for dinner. Like, that didn't happen anymore, right? So, like, it makes sense that there would be kind of less and less engagement with nature, but I do have hope that there is more of a resurgence now of people remembering, like, oh, hiking is good, camping is good, like, I'm gonna go for a walk. Like,
yeah, so the researcher has a blog called findingnature.org, and they have a post related to nature connection fear and the pandemic legacy. And in 2021, they actually assessed this, and they found that there was a connection to nature back in spring 2020, but then it dropped. And after it dropped, 5 years worth of data from 100,000 respondents to the Natural England's People and Nature Survey, they are able to say that 2020 to 2021, there was a massive decrease. It recovered a little bit in 21 and 22, and then there has been further decline through 23 and 24. The fluctuations are about 2%. From 2023, nature has seen a 4% rise, with trends starting to go separate ways, which are interesting. Yeah, but there's variation from season to season, of course, but it's just very, very interesting to see that we've got factors like mood, and in this English assessment, they've got happiness kind of coming back up again, even though going out into nature is decreasing through 2024. But anyway, they're just saying, hey, everybody, we're really disconnected from nature right now, and we're not using words about nature as much anymore. So that's maybe go touch grass and come up with more words for it.
Yeah, I kind of want to know what the missing words are. Like, to bring them back. Like, what did people stop saying? I need that list.
Yeah, so there were some of the words that were involved. Let me see if I can find it now.
And by the way, we are at minimum 14 gull poops into the show.
So many gull poops. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know how many words have been lost or whatever, but we've got urban growth, nature degradation, agent life cycle, nature connectedness that's decreasing, intergenerational transmission. They're looking at words like archetypal natural elements and terms that evoke sensory or visual aspects of the natural world. So copse, leaves, bud, dew, mosses, mountain, heath, meadow, nature, moor, lake, river, marsh, blossom. And so these are not even rare words, but they're just used less and less in the literature that we're publishing.
I use those words all the time.
Liar. Copse.
No,
I'm sure,
I do.
every day.
I mean, not that one, but I do also work for a parks department, so it's a little bit of a cheat also.
Yeah. I say trees a lot. Birds, trees. Anyway, look outside. Outside, nature, nice. Good,
Yeah,
happy.
but would you say like, oh, this morning my heart is swelling like the tide as it crescents across the amber waves of, like, like this is all people had to relate to. People talked like in terms of farming and nature because they didn't have like anything else.
Yeah, I mean, our literature
for thousands of years, all of our metaphors were nature based.
And what's actually very interesting is there was another study out this last week talking about museum experiences and how in like educational museum engagement experiences, often for the kids sections, they're related to like a garden. And there's very, very often they create these garden-like environments for kids to experience stuff in. And the author was saying, we really need to reconsider this because do you know how many kids have never seen a garden? Like, to expect that a white colonial narrative of growth is appropriate for educational experiential education for everyone is not necessarily the way we should do it. So, they're maybe
right, because none of the white kids would understand what that is.
Think outside that box garden.
I think that idea is the bee's knees, and I think anybody who runs with it, well, there'll be the cat's meow. My gosh, some hot dogger is going to come along and take the idea, and like,
What are
that's
you, a
all they
Flim
had.
Flam Dan?
No, but I'm saying like everything had to have an animal or a nature or a thing or
Yeah.
What do you
Or a
got?
hot dog, I
Corn
guess?
between your ears? Like they all they had, like kids today. Like
No,
if
I
you listen
think
to them talk,
that's
it
what
doesn't
I was
have
wondering is
You
like
just said kids today.
even physical.
if you took the time to categorize all these books, right, by these different eras, are there new categories now that did not exist before, which means then it's not that these words are disappearing, it's that there are more now.
There's maybe
Right.
diversification of experience.
So
Maybe.
if you
I think they're
if you like took it, if you looked at like, okay, a distribution based on the different types of literature, like amongst the different types, nature had an equal share. Amongst the different types, does nature still have an equal share, or does it have a similar share, right? And that's really the question, is because now we have dragons and we have spaceships and we have like vampire sex. I don't know. Like we have all these different things that we didn't have.
But there's an example right there. So there's an example right there. The title of the book about vampire sex in the old days was The Birds and the Bees.
Now it's called Twilight. Isn't that natural?
Yeah.
Come on.
It sure is.
It is. Come on, look outside. It's Twilight. Yeah, so I think this is a very, very important discussion or definition of what words are used for and why. And so, of course, our literature is going to represent our lived experiences. But historically, we used to think of ourselves as like, the colonial kind of, scientist. We're separate from nature. We own nature. We are human. We're better than all of it. And we would observe nature, and it was a thing that we were looking at, but we weren't part of it. Has the use changed in a way that, are we becoming more part of it? Are we becoming more part of our Earth, or is it still the same? I think that's important.
Yeah,
Because what they're saying is that we're disconnected.
You got to be careful when you say colonial. I think you're more picturing like a 1950s scientist than a colonial, because those colonial people were pretty close to the Earth. They didn't have.
No.
Colonial is not necessarily a specific year either, Justin. Like there were still colonies in the 1950s in the world.
I mean, even Darwin went around with a freaking gun and shot birds and put them on his boat.
How else
and
do you get samples to take home? Yeah, it's normal.
You kill them and then you bring them home. Dominance for study.
Dominance. I think it was science. I don't know about dominance. Like that seems like a little extreme interpretation.
Then why did he eat everything? Was that for science?
Well,
Darwin loved to eat everything.
Because back then that's what they did. They just ate everything because that wasn't. Like, you didn't go to a restaurant in the Galapagos Islands. There wasn't one there. You had to eat the birds that were there. That's all.
You did not have to eat the birds.
You couldn't go to the restaurant on the Galapagos Islands.
This is the new Galapagos cruise. Experience the islands in a different way, the way that Darwin did. Eat your way across the Galapagos.
Yeah.
What's for dinner, Darwin?
Those people just ate anything they could. They didn't care.
More finches.
They were always hungry.
There's so little meat on there.
All right. Well, anyway, we're supposed to go outside and get connected with nature for our mental health. Go touch grass, read a book about nature because we need more nature words in our lives. Go write a nature book. Put more nature engrams in the freaking Google database. Are we done?
But don't trust anything you read on nature because it might not be real science.
Science advances is not nature. They're different, but
it's nature. It's a nature joint.
No. Are you kidding? AAAS. Science is AAAS. Nature is British, Elsevier.
Oh, I thought you said Science Advances.
Science Advances is science. It's AAAS.
Is it?
It's a different journal. Yes, but there's Nature Communications, which is similar to Science Advances. It's like they're all on an equal footing.
Science Advances is Nature. Boom. I think that's what it says.
Oh my God, we have to go.
Oh no, then here it is. Science Advances AAAS. Why is it both?
It's not both. Are you looking at an AI search engine result?
No, I don't think I have that turned on. No. Science Advances. Here it is. Science Advances. This is Wikipedia. Not to be confused with Advanced Science. Science Advances is a peer-reviewed, multidisciplinary, open access scientific journal from the American Association of the Advancement of Science. So of course, Kiki is right. I just wanted to make that clear.
Dude, I've been doing this longer than you.
Like 2 weeks, whatever.
Hey, shout out time?
Yeah. Hope you all like the show.
Say goodnight, Blair.
No.
Are we not there yet? Or is that too soon? Okay.
You jumped the gun. You jumped it.
Oh,
Hey, everybody.
pretty
Thank you
true.
so much for joining us for this really wonderfully long show with all sorts of commentary, colorful, poopy stories, and all sorts of things. We do hope that you share it with other people. And I really want to say thank you for those of you that are here in the chat who've popped in and out in the little number that I can count as we're doing the show, as we see the numbers go up and down. It's really wonderful just to see that there are people here with us. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for being a part of this. And thank you for thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Shout outs to you. Shout outs also, Fada. Thank you so much for your help with show notes and social media. Gord, Arenlore, and Fada, everyone else. Thank you for keeping our chat rooms really great places to be. I saw that somebody deleted a comment in Twitch for me today. Thank you so much for doing that. Identity 4, thank you for recording the show. Rachel, thank you for editing. And dun, 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 thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Bam, 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 bam. I'm going to get rid of that. There we go. Down, 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 down. Thank you to Robert Norland, Robert W. Farley, Lauren Gifford, Dana Lewis, Eden Mundell, Alan Viola, Aaron Anathema, Arthur Kepler, Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kent Northcote, George Chorus, Pierre Velazar, John Rattenswamy, Chris Wozniak, Vegard Chefstad, Donovan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, Ali Coffin Shubru, Don Mundus, P.I.G. Ston, Stephen Albaran, Daryl Myshak, Andrew Swanson, Fred S104, Paul Bronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack Bryan Carrington, David E. Youngblood, Sean Clarence Land, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Z. McCann, Hayes, Christopher Howard Tan, Christopher Brappen, Richard, Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Artyom, Greg Briggs, Ron Atwood, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul Phillips, Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, Lon Makes EO, Adam Mishkan, Kevin Parnchan, Bob Calder, Marjorie Del, Paul Disney, Factor Pecoraro, and Tony Steele. I'm doing great tonight. You all are better. Thank you for your support on Patreon. If you would like to support us and you're not already, head over to twist.org, click on the Patreon link, and get a friend to do it too. On next week's show,
we will be back broadcasting live from our YouTube and our Facebook channels Wednesday, 8 p.m. Be there.
Yeah.
Want to listen to us as a podcast, perhaps while you rub some flying insects into a new wound? Just search for This Week in Science or podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe as well.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories will be available on our website, www.twist.org, where you can also sign up for Blair's newsletter.
We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, or a suggestion for an interview, please let us know on one of our social media accounts, or better yet, send us an email. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, or your email will be fired into another galaxy where it will be considered an interstellar interloper.
We look forward to discussing science with you again next week. And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
It's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. I've got one disclaimer.
Scientific Reports was the one I was thinking of.
Scientific reports. Yeah. Science.
Nature.
Nature.
Yeah, oh no, we're going the other way.
Good night, guys. I gotta go.
All right,
It's
scientific
almost
report
I'm
is
going to
nature.
follow. I'm going to be
Science
3
advances
steps.
is science. Nature communications is nature. There's all sorts of things. I know. I gotta go
Scientific
to
Reports is within nature,
right.
and
No,
that's
yes.
where I was.
Yeah, but
Not
advances.
science advances. That's why it's all
Advances is-
confusing because they all use the word science. All right, I'm
Why?
gonna go take 3 steps and fall asleep. I'm so done.
I have a freshman in high school now, and I have to take him to school in the morning. So yeah.
Yay.
What?
Say goodnight, Justin.
Literally, say good night, Justin. Say good night, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Good night,
Good night, Kiki.
Kiki.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the show. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope it's cool. I hope it's breezy and easy, and you're safe and healthy and smart and curious, and stay lucky. See you next week. Bye. Easy squeeze.